Hi, this is Corey Johnston, and today's lesson is going to take place in the second chapter in the book of Titus. Titus, along with the two epistles directed to Timothy, constitute what are known as the pastoral epistles of Paul. So Paul had pastoral proteges in the making that he saw fit to communicate doctrinally inspired instructions to in their situational context. And Timothy ministered in Ephesus. Titus ministered on the Greek Isle of Crete. Crete was the original host of what became Greek civilization. So before the Athenians and Spartans, there was actually the Mycenaeans, and their piratical offshoots became the Philistines, who harassed and the Israelites in the Promised Land. And even before that, on the Isle of Crete was what was known as the Minoan civilization, so named in reference to the king of legendary unlimited wealth, whose hand touched everything that turned into gold, and it did not end well for him. But as to the controversy of circumcision, the question and controversy of circumcision, which was alive and well during the foundational period of the new Christian faith. Timothy was Greek and Jewish by background, but he was not circumcised by birth. So Paul made him circumcised in order to create less contention and controversy and commotion amongst the pro-Judaic faction of early Christianity. But by the time the controversy developed, he ordered that Titus remain as he was, uncircumcised, because circumcision, as it was settled at the Council of Jerusalem, I did one on that. You can type in Corey Johnston, Acts 15, the Jerusalem Council. Circumcision was deemed no longer necessary for the faith. So we gather that Titus became a convert after Timothy, who was a Jew who learned much from his grandmother Eunice, but Titus was in every way, he carried the same responsibilities, just different location. That was Crete, as we already explained. And the opening verse of the second chapter reads, "But you speak what is fitting for sound teaching." You would be Titus, the recipient, the immediate audience of this address. It is written to him, but is written for us, for posterity. We can benefit from what Paul has to say to his pastoral protege, which are applicable to any pastor or aspiring pastor. And the sound advice he's giving them is to speak consistently that which is sound or good or consistently correct scriptural teaching, which springs from Elohim and not man-made philosophy or anything else. The older men are to be sober, serious, sensible, sound in faith, in love and endurance. So in the next few verses, he describes the dynamics and the responsibilities of certain gender and age demographics. The Christian community had diversity of members. They were not all one type cast of gender, race, or age. So there was older people in the same flocks as younger people, and of course there were male and females. And so to the older men, he charges them to be sober. That means more than just mere abstinence from alcohol. It means be clear-headed, don't be rambunctious, don't be obnoxious, be sober, be humble-minded, serious. That means to take things which should be taken seriously, treat them accordingly, don't treat them trivially. Sensible just means to exercise common sense, which is unfortunately not as common as a commodity as the title suggests. Sound in faith, as belongers to a community in faith, it was a necessary prerequisite that they have a well-rounded understanding in the faith they held in common, and to do it all in love. Love is the glue which ties and holds the assembly together, and endurance, because the Christian life is not a sprint, it is a marathon. It is a 365-day-a-year gig, 24/7, so it does demand an aspect of endurance to maintain the faith in spite of all the obstacles, of which there are no shortage of, not only in their age, but in our age and indeed any other age. The older women, likewise, are to be sacred in behavior, not slanderers, not given to much wine, teachers of what is good. So the responsibilities are more similar than different, but there are some details that are to be observed by the elder females that are not necessarily listed in the older men. They're to be sacred in behavior. That means to walk uprightly, walk righteously, blamelessly, without blemish, not slanderers, not given to gossip. Now this is, as sexist as this may sound, the fact is that gossip is a vice which is not exclusive, but particularly prone amongst females, and older women should arise above the temptation which is so common amongst young frivolous girls, and to be sober. He tells the men not given to much wine. He tells the women wine compromises one's intellectual and spiritual capacities and abilities, and to teach what is good. So they exist as elders to teach and instruct the younger by both instruction and an example, and is to be what is good. In order for them to train the young women to love their husbands, to love their children. Now, this is a self-evident virtue that is not necessarily unique to the Christian culture. Women are to love their husbands and love their children, but the Christian culture does add new meaning both to the term and definition of an experience of love. When we say love, we mean it in something similar but different, certainly more expansive and extensive than that which the world uses, but familial obligations are self-evident in a church life, so much so that in the pastoral guidelines he establishes in 1 Timothy 3, and I believe in Titus 1:6-9, he establishes the ability to manage a household as a prerequisite to manage a church, because he who is faithful in little can be trusted to be faithful in much, and he who is unjust in little can only be expected to be unjust with much. That's a paraphrase of Luke 16:10. To be sensible, blameless, workers at home, good, subject to their own husbands, in order that the word of Yahweh is not evil spoken of. So once more, the virtue of common sense they are to hold, they are to be blameless, they are to have no cause, give no cause or suggestion for anything that can be criticized and compromise the reputation of them or the church. Workers at home, they were to be homebodies. This was the way of the ancient world. There were very few professional opportunities for women, at least as we know now. Good, that's self-evident, subject to their own husband. That means they are expected to perform a subordinate role. They are to listen to what he says, and he is the head of the house, and they are the second, and they shouldn't try to equalize that or subvert it, because when they do, the testimony and word of Yahweh will be evil spoken of, and our homes exist as an extension of the church. So it's not a once a week, a few hours a week on Sunday gig, the Christian life. It most fully and most often manifests at home. Likewise, urge the young men to be sensible. So once more, he's returning to the male, and this is, we can assume, the responsibility primarily, although not exclusively, of the older males. Show yourself an example of good works in all, in teaching, uncorruptness, seriousness. Now, a sound example is the best teaching platform or chalkboard one can teach from. We are to embody characteristics and traits and habits and characteristics that can be visibly emulated as much as what is written on a chalkboard by chalk. And we are to abound in good works in all, so everything we do is to be good into the splendor of Elohim. Teaching is how we impart instruction. That's how we mold the character of the next generation. And corruptness, there is to be no room for corruptness, but complete and unreproachable integrity in our homes and in our churches. And this is something we all have to take seriously, because the stake of a lot of people's salvations revolve around what we do at church and how we live at home and how we act in the market and in social situations. Soundness of speech beyond reproach, in order that the opponent is put to shame, having no evil to say about you. So when we speak clean thoughts, we erase vulgarity or vanity or braggadocio from our language. Critics will not have a cause to reproach us or demean us or belittle us on account of our speech, because the words on the tip of the tongue that come out of our mouth are usually an accurate reflection of the motives and intents of our hearts and our minds. So we should speak with caution, so much so that we do not give even the hint of a pretext for others to speak ill of us because we spoke ill of, or we spoke in an ill manner about something which could have been spoken of more gently and righteously. And we are to not be put to shame, but to be proud of the witness and the uncompromised testimony that we offer to the world. And we don't want any evil people or even good people to have any reason or excuse to say evil things about you. That is not the purpose for which the community exists. Servants should be subject to their own masters, to be well-pleasing in every way, not back-talking, not stealing, but showing all good trustworthiness, so that they adorn the teaching of Yahweh, our Savior, in every way. So Paul has a lot to say throughout his epistles on the servant-master relationship. Some translate this as slaves, but whatever it is a subordinate individual who has a master, and there are three things they are not to do to them. They are not to question, contradict, or in any way backtalk what they say to him. They are to hold their tongue, bite it, do what he says. Don't ask questions, don't demand explanations, and don't offer contrary advice to what he commands. Don't steal from them. What belongs to them does not belong to you, just because you're perhaps underpaid and do not get paid the fullness of what you feel you deserve or may be entitled objectively to deserve. That does not give you license to take what that which does not belong to you. And being trustworthy in all times. The ideal servant is one who can be trusted to continue in faithful and obedient service, not one who lies, steals, or rebels, or resists, or talk backs. And if they do this, they will adorn and embody and express and give witness and testimony to the teachings of Yahweh, our Savior, in every way. So the teachings and the principles we are to embody in the church, we are to embody in the home, we are to embody in the workplace, we are to embody in the market, we are to embody in the public square. There is no time when we should cease to be Christians, even in degrading servitude, or what some may find degrading. For the saving gift of Yahweh has appeared to all men, what was once thought of the exclusive possession of the Jews who were uniquely related to him and knew Yahweh, whilst the Gentile nations were estranged from him and had a maligned religion of idolatry and polytheism that were completely foreign and alien to Yahweh, who is the one true living Elohim. By the new covenant and the institutional initiative of the church, henceforth Gentiles would in fact outnumber the number of Jews who knew Yahweh, so he was not their exclusive possession, but from henceforth a mutual possession. Instructing us to renounce wickedness and worldly lust, and to live sensibly, righteously, and reverently in the present age. So his present age is our present age. These principles and doctrines are equally and eternally binding to every and all generation. We are to renounce verbally and in action wickedness. The world is wicked, people are wicked, wickedness is all around us. We are to renounce it and distance ourselves from it and have nothing to do with it. The only reason we should be associating with wicked people is to win them to the faith. And worldly lust, the world produces many lusts which incite and instill temptations and impure thoughts which lead to impure deeds and damnable sins. So we are to similarly separate ourselves from them, but rather more positively live sensibly, righteously, and reverently in the present age. Reverently means to treat. It has divine connotations, so a lot of Christians call their ministers reverends, and that indicates a closeness to God that we should alike embody, and we are, of course, to be righteous, of moral and ethical conduct, and sensibly we are to think smart, use common sense, and not be foolish about what we are and who we are and what we do. Looking for the blessed hope and esteemed appearance of the great Elohim and our Savior, Yahshua Messiah. So this is what it's all about. This is what it all boils down to. This is what they're longing for. This is what they're waiting for. This is the reason that they are living the way they are currently living. It's for the future and blessed expectation of the Messiah, who will come and establish his millennial kingdom and ultimately uplift the saints to salvation. And he will appear in his second coming, which awaits us. No man knows the day or the hour, but we do know the season. And it is not implausible to suggest that it could happen in our lifetimes, given the unfoldings of human history, which bear an uncanny resemblance to end-time prophecies. So never, ever, ever lose sight of that expectation. It could happen today. It's going to happen as a thief in the night. Who gave himself for us to redeem us from all lawlessness and to cleanse for himself a people, a possession, ardent for good works. So he gave, he offered, he sacrificed himself for us, and this was the only way that he could redeem us from our sin and iniquity, was for him to become sin and bear the sin penalty, so that he didn't deserve. He lived the life we should have lived and died the death we should have died, but he did it all for us so that we don't have to. And this demands, expunges us of sin eternally, but we are to live repentant life once we have accepted the atonement. And his whole purpose is to make a people who he calls his own. That means is a possession. They belong to him, and anything we belong to belongs to us. So the possession is mutual. We belong to him, and he belongs to us. And like him, inasmuch as we are worthy disciples, we are ardent for good works. This is our entire reason for living and getting up in the morning. And it's the last thing we think about at the end of the day. What did I do today to make the world a better place? Speak these, urge and reprove with all authority. Let no one despise you. So being a pastor entails certain authorities and responsibilities, and in most cases, there's no shortage of resistors or challenges or critics who try to belittle you or dethrone you. This was unique with Timothy. This was not unique with Titus, but was often the case with Timothy, who Paul writes, "Let no one despise you because of your youth." And even Paul himself had his apostolic authority challenged by many people in many, many places. So when we are duly authorized, when we have and heard and received an authentic calling from Elohim, that means we must resist those who resist us, and they're going to come, but we're going to triumph over them because our calling comes from a one who is greater than all. And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here. Stay tuned until next time. See you then. Bye-bye.